I've been paying for and using both Hostinger and Namecheap for multiple years, and today I'm going to be doing a full deep dive. I'm going to look at all the performance and also for my website what I have been tracking. I will also look at all of the features, which one is best for each use case, and mostly I will go and fully deep dive into pricing because it can be very confusing, and I've seen a lot of people online just advertise the first year heavily discounted prices. But if you want to go and see the true pricing, the renewal pricing, definitely stick around. Let's get right into it. Let's get into performance. But let's take a look at it in Uptime Robot. This is going to monitor our websites in real life. I have hooked up both my Hostinger and Namecheap website to monitor the loading speed. So let's take a look at it. Hostinger is pretty clear in here. We can see in last hour it is relatively stable with one notable bump. If we look at 24 hours, it is pretty straightforward. There are some instances where it can get up, but if you look at it with 7-day time period, we can see it is pretty stable in here with the average response time of 150 milliseconds, which is really good. If we take a look at Namecheap, we can see it is completely different story in here, and you can see the bumps are more common and way more noticeable. So we can see that it is keeping around 300 milliseconds for a very good time, but then it tends to go and jump up to over 1000 milliseconds. And this is no isolated incident. We can see that it has been happening a lot in here, but also over the longer time period, we can see that the bumps are very noticeable. And now, just look at this. If I go to 7-day window, this is where I started to putting it together. When I firstly connected this to my Namecheap website, we can see it was very well. It was in 100 milliseconds, even outperforming Hostinger. But then something happened and it started to rising to thousands of milliseconds. And you can see after that, somehow magically it started decreasing. So what happened? Well, I actually was so confused by this that I went and bought this tool. Now this is very important because if you are not paying for this, you will have only one option, default auto select by Uptime Robot, and they can be switching between US and Europe locations. So pretty much they can send you traffic from different parts of the world. Now what I wanted to ensure, since both my Namecheap and also my Hostinger, both websites have data center location in the US. So after that, I started paying. I chose only North America as the region we want to go and compare to. And after that, we can see it start to lower to a normal level. And I believe that around 600 milliseconds is actually the current average for Namecheap. So we can see that Namecheap from those data is relatively less reliable. It's definitely way worse if you don't have very specific location for your audience. So if you have them all over the world, it might not be the best option for a lot of those. And Hostinger in this case is definitely delivering better results. In terms of uptime, I haven't seen a single downtime from either Namecheap or Hostinger. And from my years of owning both Hostinger and Namecheap, I can confidently say that uptime, none of those have problems with those, and I didn't see any significant problems with this. So uptime, both are perfect. In terms of performance and response time, Hostinger is definitely better. Now let's compare some key features. As I was already mentioning, with server location, Hostinger will offer you 12 data center locations to choose from, and the Namecheap only 4 data center locations, which are very wide, covering whole Europe. So we don't know the specific place in there. So if you have a specific audience, Hostinger is definitely better in this. In terms of comparing plans, I decided to go with shared hosting and the cheapest plan. So for Hostinger, it will be the premium plan, and for Namecheap, it will be the stellar plan. You can see they have a lot of options to go and compare here. I have chosen few of the most important ones, but they are relatively safe. You're gonna have differences. For example, Hostinger allowing you to build 25 websites with one plan, and Namecheap only 3. Not sure why would you need to go and build those. This is just a gimmick in numbers. So we don't need to really worry about those. The biggest differences that you actually can use in your real life is that Hostinger will give you only one backup weekly. With Namecheap, you will have 2 weekly backups included in this plan as well. And probably the most important is that with Namecheap, you are going to be getting cPanel, and with Hostinger, they have their own custom built solution, which is called hPanel. For complete beginners, this doesn't make that much difference, but a lot of people will already have experience with cPanel and might prefer it over the learning curve of hPanel. If you are a complete beginner, Hostinger made it in a way that it's much easier to go and build a WordPress website. They have completely streamlined this process and it's much easier. With Namecheap, you have to go and be alert because you can go and miss some stuff. For example, when setting up domain, to go and switch it on HTTPS. I'm not sure why this is not done automatically, but this can be a very big problem for complete beginners. So in terms of plan, I think they are relatively similar, those cheapest one, and there are no major differences in here. In terms of setting up a WordPress website, Hostinger will give you better experience if you are a complete beginner. If you have some experience with cPanel, you might go and prefer the experience of Namecheap and the familiarity of the cPanel. Now, in terms of support, I had no problem with either. I have noticed that Hostinger, they are definitely leaning more into the AI. So you are firstly talking to AI and they take you to a lot of stuff until you can get to a real human being, which can be very annoying for a lot of people. On the other hand, Namecheap, I think they're much better in this case. But when you try to look for some solutions online, some tutorials, Hostinger has discovered way better compared to Namecheap. Let's not forget, Namecheap, they're mostly still focusing on selling domains. So the web hosting is something they're doing along the way. Hostinger, they're fully focused on web hosting, and domains, they're just part of it for them. In terms of all of the AI features, definitely Hostinger has much bigger impact in here. They have some relatively good features and some completely useless. I especially like their image generator. This can be very handy when you're a complete beginner and you need some specific visuals and you don't have that much experience with Photoshop or other stuff. And also they are winning in their website builder, which is actually useful and it can honestly replace platforms like Wix. On the other hand, Namecheap, I can confidently say I don't think they are investing in this at all. Their website builder is absolute garbage and I would never recommend you or to anybody to use it. Now it might look like Hostinger is getting you much better deal, but how much does it cost? Because this is very important. And is it actually worth going with Hostinger? Well, let's take a look at it. It can get relatively tricky. With all web hosting providers, please keep in mind that they have heavily discounted first year prices. So the real kick up will go after the first year term when you have to go and start paying the real rate. So let's take a look at it. For Namecheap, it's pretty clear. For the first year, you are paying $190 if you're going with the most basic plan. So you will be paying around $22.80 for web hosting, and additionally with it, you are paying for a domain, which costs you $11.28. So for first year, you will be paying around $34 for this. Hostinger is a bit more complicated because even though they have the 1 year term, you definitely don't want to go with it. Everybody with Hostinger will go with 4-year term. It is set up in this way. All the other terms are honestly kind of decoy, but this is by far the best deal for a longer time period. So you will be paying with this price per 1 month $299, which gonna resolve for a 1-year price to $35.88. You're gonna get the domain for the first year for free, and after that it's $13.99, so basically $14. The domain prices between Namecheap and Hostinger are non-factor. They're pretty much identical. But in here it gets very interesting, because if you go with Hostinger for 4 years, you are paying $175.44. But be careful, because you can pay also more. This is including the price if you would go and use code LUCA7, which can save you 7% of the overall value. And then you have also Namecheap, which you will be paying $254.70 for the 4 years. But keep in mind, you cannot buy 4-year terms with Namecheap, So if we go and adjust this for a yearly price, we can see that Namecheap is going to be cheaper, because when the renewal kicks in, we can see that for 1 year with Hostinger, you will be paying $143.88. So in your fifth year. But with Namecheap, you are paying only $58.60. Okay, so keep this in mind and make a decision on yourself. So now you might be asking yourself, okay, but who should I go with? Well, I would say if you want to have something that you're building for yourself, it's your business, your portfolio website, you want to have something easy and reliable, I would go with Hostinger for a longer time period. You get to go and still save a lot of money, and you will find out in 4 years if you want to stay with them or no. Now, if you are just playing around, you're on a very strict budget, and you already have some experience with cPanel, I would actually go and recommend you to go with Namecheap. You don't need to go and pay the extra convenience fee that you will be getting with Hostinger. If you appreciate this honesty and you want to support this channel without paying for anything, just feel free to use my links in the description. It will not cost you anything extra, and it will support this channel. I hope this tutorial helped you. Thank you, and see you in the next one. Goodbye.